I believe today's broadcast was sponsored by Bench, Leo Nishmas. I think it was his grandmother. I don't remember the name. And also Fushleim for Dr. Tapa.
How is he?
Shleimer. Okay.
How is uh how is Papoff?
And I Nicole Shleimer Gansfield. Where's who? Oh, Benzie's here.
How is Papoff?
Well, I got a text. I got a voice text last night from Mayor Hyman that he's 100% fine and it was not COVID. It was a bad reaction to a medicine that he took and it had nothing to do with COVID.
Oh boy.
So the whole thing, and he said, I'm sending this to you because I heard that there was a miscommunication in shul and it was not COVID. As a matter of fact, this COVID test that he took in the hospital showed that he barely had traces of it. It just his whole issue that he had was that he took a medicine that did not agree with him, and now he's better as well. He's feeling fine.
Oh, Baruch Hashem.
I got this last night at about 8:30. I got this voice message from Mayor Hyman. I sent it to the Rav because the Rav was very worried about it. So that's why the Rav will know that he's fine. Gezok Tehillah Gemara. My Rebbe, my Rebbe. We had a discussion yesterday. The Rebbe said that anything that's usher only midirabanon, bein hashmashos, it's allowed. So it was relevant to us in Eruvin because we were putting an Eruv on a tree, and it's usher to be mishamish with an elan. So you wouldn't be able to take it off the tree on Shabbos. But bein hashmashos, when the Eruv is being chal, bein hashmashos, when the Eruv is being triggered, at that moment you would have been able to take the Eruv off the tree, according to Rebbe, and therefore it's a good Eruv. So the Gemara wants to know, where is this machlokes? Where do you find this machlokes between Rebbe and Rabban about an Isser of Bein HaShmashos? Now it's important to note, and it's going to be relevant in the Gemara later, the Bein HaShmashos, where Rebbe allows you to do Durabbanans, that's the Bein HaShmashos of Friday afternoon going into Shabbos. But the Bein HaShmashos of Motzoi Shabbos, it's not so pashut that Rebbe holds there. You could also be Mikkel. We'll see the Gemara. It's likely that Rebbe holds that the Bein HaShmashos after Shabbos, there you have to be machmer on the Rabbanans. And that probably is very relevant in many different tribes.
This is just an intellectual debate because nobody knows exactly when the moment of Ben Hashmashis is.
No, we know there's a period of time.
Yeah, but nobody knows exactly when it is. So it's just an intellectual exercise.
That's not how I understood it. I thought there's like 40 minutes, or according to certain sheetahs, there's some people hold it's clarifying, but there's sheetahs who hold that
right.
There's such extent, so there's an area of Suffolk. Right?
Oh.
It's that time is when we're coming home from shul and the Bobovers are still driving to shul.
Yeah.
The Tanya. Or from their perspectives, when we're driving home from shul Motzei Shabbos and they're coming in to daven mincha, Titania, Nasno Ilan. You put your Eruv on the tree. So this is the same sugi we had yesterday. You place your Eruv on a tree, 10 tvachim above the ground. Ein Eruv Eruv. Your Eruv is not a good Eruv. And like we discussed, since you're in Rosh Hashanah and you want to be Kohen Shvisha Rosh Hashanah, and your Eruv is above 10 is considered a Rosh Hashanah. You're in Rosh Hashanah, your Eruv is in Rosh Hashanah, therefore your Eruv will not be a good Eruv. But Lamata Me'asar Tvachim, if the Eruv was placed on the tree lower than 10 Tvachim, then Eruv Eruv, then it's a good Eruv because it's in Rosh Hashanah. However, v'asa litloi, you're not allowed to take it because on Shabbos you're not allowed to take anything off a tree because you're being mishamish bila. Zok tehillah gemara b'soich shloisha. What if it was on a tree but it was within 3 tfachim of the ground? Then it's mutter litloi, because Rashi tells us that this isser of being mishamish bi'ilam, not putting things on trees and using trees, that only applies to a tree that's above 3 tvachim. I take that back. that only applies to above 3 tvachim on the tree, no matter how tall the tree is. But if lower than 3 tvachim, we look at it like it's on the ground, and we don't consider that you're using a tree. And Rashi quotes an interesting Mishnah that says, if you have a tree with roots, and sometimes if you're in a forest, the roots of the tree comes back up out of the ground. So he says roots of the tree that came back up out of the ground, you're allowed to use those roots, provided that those roots don't extend more than 3 tvachim high. So anything that's within 3 tvachim of the ground, you are allowed to be mishamish with an elah. So what happens if it's nasnoi b'chal kala? You hung a basket on the tree, or I'm saying it out of order. Nasnoi b'chal kala, you put your erev in a basket, the taloi be'ilam, and you hung your basket on the tree. Then afilu l'mayla me'asar tvachim, even if this basket is above 10 tvachim, or your erev is above 10 tvachim, then Eruv erev would be a good erev, divrei Rebbe. We don't know exactly what this means yet. The Gemara is going to be analyzing that carefully. The Chachamim say, and we don't necessarily know that this is directly related to the case we just discussed. The Gemara is going to ponder what we're about to quote from the Chachamim. What case of the earlier brayos is it going on? Anytime one may not take that erev, ein eruv erev. It disqualifies the erev completely. You have to be able to take that erev on Shabbos in order for you to be able to use it. Okay, so let's figure this out. This comment that the Chachamim made, that if you cannot take the erev, it's not a good erev. Which case of the brisa that we just quoted was he referring to? Ilema seifa. If he was referring to the seifa, which means when it was in the basket. One second. I'm tangled. Give me a second. Okay. If the case is when it was in the basket, if the Chachamim are saying in the case with the basket, it's also the ein eruv erev, lema kasavi rabbanan stad nasurin. That would tell us a big chiddush. Now, when it's in a basket, it's not directly leaning on the tree. It's leaning on the basket, and the basket is leaning on the tree. That's called studin. There is a big machlokes if you're allowed to use something on studin. I'm pretty sure we passed in that. I think studin asurim, but stud is stern and not asur. But there is a big machlokes if something is not leaning directly on the tree, rather it's on the basket that's on the tree. This would prove that our Chachamim holds that studin asurim. And is that what you want to prove from this brisa? And the Gemara says obviously not. Ella Aresha, let's say that the Rabbanan who said it's also is going on the Resha. So what does that mean? When did Rebbe say it was a good Eruv? The first case of the Brisa was you had a tree. If you put the Eruv on the tree above 10, even Rebbe holds it's not a good Eruv. Everybody holds it's not a good Eruv because you're in Rishus HaRabim, your Eruv is in Rishus HaYachid. But if you place it on the tree lower than 10, then Rebbe holds it's a good Eruv. Because you're in Rishus HaRabim and your Eruv is in Rishus HaRabim. You cannot take it off the tree on Shabbos because you're not to be Meshamish with the Elon on Shabbos. No problem. Since Bein HaShmoshes, you were able to take it off the tree because the prohibition of being Meshamish Be'ilon does not apply to Bein HaShmoshes, Rebbe holds it's a good Eruv. The Rabbanan, on that Rabbanan said, Kol Makam Shasher Litloi, Ein Eruv Eruv, meaning anytime there's an issue to take it off on Shabbos, it still won't be a good Eruv. You know why? Because the Rabbanan holds the same shvus that applies to Shabbos, the same Isser, that you're not allowed to use a tree on Shabbos, applies to Bein HaShmoshes as well. So you're not allowed to take this off the tree on Bein HaShmoshes. Come to Chois that your Eruv is not going to be a good Eruv because you place the Eruv on the tree lower than 10. Yes, it is in Rishus HaRabim, but you cannot access it Bein HaShmoshes. Since you cannot access it, it's not a good Eruv. And that's the end of what we brought this brisa down for. And we're going to go now the rest of the day, we're going off on a big tangent. But all we try to prove from here is that there's a machlokes Rebbe and the Rabbanon as to whether or not Isurim the Rabbanon are usher even on Bein HaShmoshes of Shabbos. So from here we see the Rabbanon hold that there is a problem and an Isur the Rabbanon applies to Bein HaShmoshes of Erev Shabbos and Rebbe holds not. And that's the end of the sukkah. Now the Gemara is going to drill down to understand this brisa a little better, and it's going to get a little bit complicated. Hai ilan heichidami. This tree, of which we said if you place the Erev above 10, It's not a good Eruv. If it's below 10, it is a good Eruv. How big is this tree? Either less by arba tvachim. Oh, I stuck in the word tvachim. Either less by arba. If it's not 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim, there's no surface on top of the tree, a 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim that you can place something on, then makam turhu. We know that anything that's not dalad al dalad has the status of a makam tur, and therefore it doesn't matter if it's above 10 tvachim or below 10 tvachim. The erev should have been a good erev. The ida is arba. Now, if the tree has dalad al dalad, so then he nastu b'kalkala might have it. If it's above 10 tvachim, you have a basket that's hanging on a tree above 10 tvachim in Rishus HaYachid. Why is it mutter? The Brisa says, nastu b'kalkala v'toli be'ilam afilu l'mayla me'asar tvachim Eruv Eruv. So I have a big tree. If I put the Eruv on the tree above 10 tvachim, it would not be a good Eruv. But since it's in a basket, it is a good Eruv. What's the difference? It's still in Rishus HaYachid, and he's in Rishus HaRabim, so it's not a good Eruv. Zok Gemara, Amar Avina, Reisha de Ispe Arba. The Reisha before the Brisa started involving a basket. And the Brisa was just talking about placing the Eruv directly on the tree. There, it was a tree that had 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim. So therefore, if you placed it on the tree above 10 tvachim, you placed it in Rishus HaYachid, and therefore it's not a good Eruv. But if you placed it on the tree below 10 tvachim from the ground, then you've actually placed it in the Rishus HaRabim, and therefore it's a good Eruv. But the second case, Seifa, where the Brisa talks about hanging a basket on the tree above 10 tvachim, and the Brisa says, according to Rebbe, that it's a good Eruv, Seifa the less arba. The tree did not have 4. Now, we're going to soon see what that problem is. What is the problem if it doesn't have 4? But speaking where it didn't have 4, the kalkala mashlimto larba. So let's say the cross section of the tree was one square tefach, and the basket was 3 square tefachim. So together, if you combine the opening of the basket with the surface of the tree, you have a complete platform of 4. Why do you need a platform of 4? Why is that relevant? So Rashi says, Seifa the less bedal, the bottom Rashi, Mishum hachi lav rishus hayochari. The Seifa is speaking where the tree did not have dalad al dalad. So therefore, it's not a rishus hayochid. It's a makam tur. It's too small. So oibazoi, then what's the problem? Why do I need a basket? If it's a makam tur that I'm placing the Eruv on, I'm allowed to use it. So why is there a problem with Eruv? Why do I need a basket? It just complicates things. So to Rashi, the reason why I need a basket here, because kol the nokat mishum the Rebbe Savel or Rabbi Yehuda. On Amud Beis, the Gemara is going to introduce Rabbi Yehuda, who Rebbe agrees with, that holds that there's a separate problem by Eruv. And by Eruv, there's a rule, the Amar Eruv hamunach l'mayla meyud lahava Eruv, v'afil neschavin lishbosh l'mayla, ella in kain, here's the punchline, munach al gabe mokam arba. When you place an Eruv, the Eruv has to always be sitting on a surface. The minimum surface that an Eruv could be placed on, that we consider it placed, is if it's a makam arba. Now, if it's less than 10 tefachim, we say kluta k'mishahon chodami, we consider it like it's on the ground. So less than 10 tefachim, wherever you put it, it's considered like it's on a significant platform. But if it's above 10 tefachim, where we no longer say it's considered like it's attached to the ground, it's hovering in the air, unless it's actually sitting on the surface that's at least 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim. So here we have a small little tree that's not dalad al dalad, that goes way up past 10 tefachim. You have it hanging on the basket that's above 10 tefachim. It's not a problem of it being in the Rishus HaYachid because it's a makam tur, because it's not dalad al dalad. But you need the Eruv to be put on something, on a significant platform, and that's why you have this basket. If there was no basket here, there would not be enough surface area at the top of the tree to consider the Eruv like it's placed on the proper tabletop. Between the opening of the basket and the surface of the tree, you have that minimum platform size that's required in order to place the Eruv. I'm sorry? Okay, so I have, let's say here's my tree, okay, and I have a basket hanging beside the tree. So I have the surface of the basket, and I have the parallel surface that's in the tree. That's parallel to it. So your kasha is a very good kasha. You're asking the kasha. The surface of the tree is at the top of the tree. Where I'm at the side of the basket, there is no surface. It's hitting the trunk, right? So that's why the Gemara will say this. In order to be able to rely on this theory, we have to make believe like the tree is cut, and now it's a complete flat surface that's parallel to the surface of my basket. So you also, so the floor of the basket, but at least there's some type of surface here. At least there's some type of surface. So then you ask the very good question: how exactly could this surface here, which is just a sidewall of a tree, combine with a flat platform? So that the Gemara is going to ask right now. Zok the Gemara, Rabbi Savalak Reb Meir. Rabbi holds like Reb Meir, and Reb Meir is the shita that's going to answer Dubi's kasha. V'Savalak Reb Yehuda. So let's look at this. Savalak Reb Meir, Damar Chagrin Hashlim. There's a surface there. The problem is the tree is growing above that level, so you don't cut it off. Reb Meir says you could make believe like the tree was cut at the same level as the basket, and now you have one plane, one surface that's dalet tvachim. The Savalak Reb Yehuda. Sorry?
Why? What do you mean we make believe? These aren't make believe halachas. You need.
There's a lot of make believe we're going to have today. This is just touching the surface how much make believe we're going to have. But let's go back to where Reb Meir said is halacha. Reb Meir said is halacha l'gabe shaylach mezuzah. If you have an arched doorway, so you don't have flat walls, you can't put a mezuzah. But what if you have, I think it's 3 tvachim of straight wall, and then the doorway becomes arched? Reb Meir held you chayv mezuzah because you make believe like you've chiseled out the block and you actually have flat sidewalls. So that's also make believe, right? That's also make believe. So we're very imaginative by us. We make believe.
How about we make believe we keep the halacha? How about?
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Is that what Shmuel asked? Shmuel said, what if I'm hungry and I just had fleishik and I want ice cream? Can I make believe that the 6 hours already?
Right.
Well, you can make believe like you're having ice cream. I hear. Well, they say there's a famous story that they say that there's 3 Hasidim that were showing off with each other who has the greatest Rebbe. And one who says that my Rebbe was once walking and he hit a mountain, and to go over the mountain would be impossible. So he said, Mountain Ahin, Mountain Aher, the mountain split and a flat road just showed up out of nowhere and he walked right through. So that's nothing. My Rebbe was walking by a river and he had to get through the river. It was a raging river. He couldn't get through. So he said, Tachahin, Tachaher, the river split and he walked through on dry land. So he said, that's nothing. You want to hear what my Rebbe did? My Rebbe was walking on Shabbos and he saw $100,000 in cash on the floor. And he said, what am I going to do with Shabbos? So he said, Shabbos Ahin, Shabbos Aher, and he picked up the money. So you see the concept of make-believe. Zok to Gemara. V'sovelach Rav Yehuda, and he holds like Rav Yehuda, the Omar Ba'inon Eruv al Gabi Mokam Arba V'leka. So the reason why you have to have that basket there is you need a surface of 4. The tree itself did not provide that surface of 4, and therefore, you had to put the basket there. Now, on a serious note, this concept of imagination is it has to be royu to create a surface of 4. We have a surface that's royu to be made. It could be modified into a surface of 4. Let's think a second. You're using the Eruv to be kind of your Makam Shvisa. It's only there for Bein HaShemashos. Even if after Bein HaShemashos it gets destroyed, you were still kind of Shvisa. So you're never even using this Eruv. But since it's possible that you could have placed an Eruv in that place, that's enough to be kind of Shvisa. So it's not really make-believe. We're just saying this is enough minimum criteria for us to agree that you've indicated with a very strong communication that this is where I plan to spend Shabbos. So if it could be made into a place of 4 and it could be significant, it's good enough of an expression that this is your Shvisas Makom. You have to understand, the whole Eruv Tchumen is only Midrabanan. So they're going easy on us.
Right, but if we call it a Makom P'tur, right, that really doesn't exist. We're just...
Makom P'tur, We're not talking about Lagabe Hilchos Eruvin. Lagabe Hilchos, are you allowed to take something on Shabbos from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah? You're not allowed to. But from a Makam Tur to Rosh Hashanah, you are allowed to.
Right. And what defines Mokum Patur?
A Makam Tur is a place that's not a Dalit al Dalit. A place
Right.
that's not Dalit al Dalit is considered a Makam Tur because it's
So
insignificant.
we're making believe that it is a Dalit al Dalit.
So that's right. We're sort of twisting ourselves into a pretzel. Lagabe Shabbos, it's not a Dalit al Dalit. But Lagabe Eruv, it is a Dalit al Dalit. That's right. That's right. So we are twisting ourselves.
But we only do Erev because of Shabbos.
That's correct. Yeah, well, technically, even though I'm in Rosh Hashanah and the Erev is applied to the Rosh Hashanah, we still say I have access to it because we're technically saying it's a Makam Tur. But we also have to say that I placed my Erev on Al Dad Al Dalad. So the imaginative state of that it's on a Makam Dalad Al Dalad would actually or would potentially pose a problem for us if it was a real Rosh Hashanah in the Chadam. Okay, so let's see what we have here. My Rabbi Yehuda. What is the halacha of Rabbi Yehuda that says you need a makam dalit to be the makam choshev? The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer, not skoira b'shus harab. You took a small pole and you planted it into the shus harab. So I would envision, let's say, the pole that holds up a basketball net. Imagine you anchor that into the ground on Shabbos. I'm sorry, not on Shabbos. Before Shabbos, you had it there. V'hiniach Eruv yaleh. And you put your Eruv on top of the pole. Gavoya Yud, if this pole is 10 tvachim high, and v'rachmadal, and the pole is very thick, it's 4 tvachim wide, then the Eruv, then your Eruv will be an Eruv. The imlav, but if not, and the Pashup shot is if it's not 10 tvachim high, then ein Eruv Eruv, then it wouldn't be a good Eruv. So as quoted, this brisa makes no sense. Adarabah, if it's not 10 tvachim high, it actually is more mustaber that it should be a good Eruv, because then it's in Rishus Rabbim with him. Hu ve'eruvoi b'machem echaru. So why would you say that if it's less than 10 tvachim, it won't be a good Eruv? If it's less than 10 tvachim and he's in Rishus Rabbim, if anything that makes it into a good Eruv. So we need to explain this brisa. Al-Hachi Kamar, Gavoya Hasar, if this pole was 10 tvachim high, only then Sarach Sheyehei B'Roisha Arba. Then you need that it should have a surface of 4 tvachim because it's above 10 tvachim high. You can't say you can't look at this object as if it's sitting on the floor. It's sitting suspended, so therefore it has to be on a surface that's dalad al dalad. Ein gavoya asar, if it's not 10 tvachim high, then ein tzarich shehei b'roisha arba. So if we go back to the brisa, we didn't change the words of the brisa, but we changed the meaning of the brisa. So let's look again. The Tanya Buddha Omer not skar b'shus harabim and v'nich eruv yaleh gvoy yud v'rchava dalad eruv erev v'imlav. If it's not wide, if it's not dalad wide, before we touch it, if it's not 10 tvachim high. Now we're touching if it's not dalad wide, then ein eruv erev because it's not on the platform. So you see that you need to have a platform. Now the Gemara says kaman. And it's a shaila what this is referring to, but Rashi says, Kaman Ravina, who on Omar Aleph explained our Mishnah. Ravina is the one who explained our brisa that Reisha de Ispe Arba, Seifa the less Arba, the Kalkaloi Mashlim Toiler Arba. So this Ravina, this Ravina, who Rashi tells us, Ravina Matar Ravina Lil, even though you make believe like that tree is sawed off, and together with the surface of the basket and the surface of the tree, of dalit, you have a platform of dalit. Loy have a rishus hayachid. It's still not considered a rishus hayachid, because if that would make it to be considered like David Zolti spoke on earlier, if that dalit al dalit now makes it like it's a rishus hayachid, so now you have a bigger problem. Your Eruv is not a good Eruv because you're in rishus harabim. And your Eruv is in Rishus HaYachid. So David mentioned earlier that we're imagining that it's a Makam Dalad al Dalad, that it's a surface, but it's not a Makam Dalad al Dalad to have made it into a Rishus HaYachid up there. So therefore, Lav Rishus HaYachid become the Ein Dikrei Dalad, because it's not for your Eruv placement. It's enough if you have a tabletop that's Dalad al Dalad. But in order for this to be a Rosh Hashanah, you need that the support, the beam that's holding up this platform also has to be Dalit al Dalit, and that's the like Rabbi Yehuda, the like Rabbi Yosy by Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda held that if you merely had a platform, even if the trunk of the tree wasn't Dalit al Dalit, that would have made it into a Rosh Hashanah, and then you just Eruv would not have been good because you're not allowed to place your Eruv in Rosh Hashanah if you're actually in Rosh Hashanah. So Zakt Gemara, this Ravina is the loy to Rabbi Yosy by Yehuda. Because what did Rabbi Yosy by Yehuda say? The Tanya Rabbi Yosy by Yehuda Omer, no atzkana b'Rosh Hashanah. You implanted a basketball net post in Rosh Hashanah, the niach b'Rosh Traskel, and directly on top of it, not like in our sugya where you hung a basket on the side of the tree, but directly on top of this post, you put some type of container, some type of basket, vizorak, and you threw something 4 amas in Rosh Hashanah, v'noch al gabav, and it landed on top of it. Actually, it doesn't matter if it was 4 amas or not, because it's from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, chayiv will be chayiv. So you see that this basket on top of the pole, according to Rabbi Yehuda, attained a status of Rosh Hashanah, even though at the bottom it's just a thin pole. Rather, you see he holds good achas mechitzta, the wall of those baskets. We look at it as if it comes down to the ground, and we say that that is a Rosh Hashanah. That wouldn't be possible according to Ravina, because then you wouldn't be able to put the Eruv up there, because it would be in a Rosh Hashanah. Zok Gemara, afilu temi Rabbi Yosy bar Yehuda. Maybe Rabbi Yosy bar Yehuda would agree to us in our case that it's not a Rosh Hashanah. You know why? Hasam hadron mechitzta. There, the basket was placed directly on top of the pole, and the basket, independent of the pole, has a makam dalit al dalit. So therefore, all you have to say is good achas mechitzta. You make believe like the mechitzta goes down to the bottom, and it totally encompasses the pole. Rashi says, since my basket on top of the pole is bigger than the pole on all 4 sides, the entire pole is encompassed by a wall. So therefore, according to Rabbi, that's why it's a Rosh Hashanah. But hacha loy hadron mechitzta. Here you have the basket that's beside the wood, right? The basket hanging beside the tree, and even if the basket, you say good achas, it's not going around the tree, and you have to combine 2 svaras to make this work. You have to have the imagination of choyking and lahashlim, and together with that you got to say good achas. That's a bit much. We have an imagination, but not that big of an imagination. Even we have our red line. So therefore, it's possible that Ravina's teretz to the Mishnah, to the Brisa, would be consistent with the Rabbi Yehuda, and the Rabbi Yehuda would agree that when you have to combine both good achas and chalkin lahashlim, you wouldn't do it. Yeah, I'm feeling like a basket case today. Maybe it's nailed to the tree. Maybe it's hanging off a branch higher with a handle. It could be hanging in different ways. But somehow it's adhered to. Somehow at a level where I have my food in there, I could be chaykin lahashlim. Okay, so now. So let's see Rashi. So let's see Rashi. Let's look at Rashi. Traskel. Sal rochav dalet. Vizorak meshus harabim. You threw something from meshus harabim. V'noch al gabav, and it landed on top of this basket that's on top of the pole. Chayiv sharei zorak meshus harabim meshus yachid. Alma afal gav dekana ein rochav dalet. Even though the pole was not a makam dalet, have a rishus yachid. The top surface of the traskel will be a rishus yachid. Hoyel vel yoynei dalet, since the top is 4. Damrinan good achis. Welcome to Farsh. So Shlomo is bringing up a very good point, and I think we need to learn from it. And that's why do we need it? We have a platform, and if we have a platform that's dalet al dalet, so why isn't that a rishus yachid? Right? So what I'm going to learn from your kasha is a rule that in order for something to be a rishus yachid, even though it's above 10 tefachim, it has to have virtual walls at least that go down to the bottom. So it's not just having a place up there. It actually has to have anchors down at the ground. I'm sorry? By itself, it might not be enough. Or maybe it would, I don't know. But I'm learning a Yosy from here. So from Shlomi's kasha, of why isn't that enough? I don't have an answer to the kasha. I don't have an answer to the why, but at least I see a new rule that in order for it to be considered the Rosh Hashanah, you have to have that imaginary, you have to have that imaginary line, that imaginary wall. Okay, so the Gemara says over here, I'm sorry, I want to see the Rashi. I want to see Rashi. We don't have to learn the whole Rashi. It's only the first couple of lines where Rashi makes the distinction between the basket on the tree and the basket on top of a post. This basket was hanging along the side of the tree. It wasn't on top of the tree. Even if we say good achas on the basket, we still need to use Reb Meir's svar of chaykin lahashlim. So we have to combine two imaginations. So that between the surface of the kalkala and the surface of the tree, we'll have it. That's too much of an imagination that we will not allow. Okay. Now we have a whole new teretz. We said a minute ago that Ravina had a problem with her Mishnah. What was the problem that Ravina had with her Mishnah? He said that if it's a makam dalad al dalid, what does the kalkala help? And if it's not a makam dalad al dalid, then it's a reish of the Mishnah. Why would there be a problem with placing the Eruv above 10 tefachim? Right? That's how this whole thing started. So Rabbi Yirmiyah has a different approach. So the question was, if it wasn't a makam dalad al dalid, if it was not a makam dalad al dalid, what in the world does the basket help? Right? What does the basket help? If it is a makam dalad al dalad, if it's a makam dalad al dalad, then most of the brayso makes sense. If you place it on the tree above 10 tefachim, it's in a Rosh Hashanah. If you place it on the tree below 10 tefachim, it's in a Rosh Hashanah. The problem is if I hang it on the basket above 10 tefachim and the tree is dalad al dalad, what does that help? Why is that good? Rebbe said you can hang it off a basket, even though it's above 10 tefachim, but if it's in a basket, somehow that's going to make it a good Eruv. The question is why. So Rabbi Yirmiyah wanted to suggest another reason. Rabbi Yirmiyah Amar, shiny kalkala, a basket is different. You could bend it a little bit. A basket is pliable. So even though it's above 10 tefachim, but you could pull it down to below 10 tefachim. If you pull it down to below 10 tefachim, now you're in Rishus HaRabim. That's how Rabbi Yirmiyah wanted to explain our brayso. So really we're speaking about a basket that's hanging on a tree that's more than dalad al dalad. Had you placed it on the tree, it would be stuck above 10 tefachim. It would be in a Rishus HaYachid. But in a basket, since you have the option of pulling it to you, that's good enough. Rashi is shining kalkala. Hoil varuchi, since it's longish, yochel and toisa, it's able to bend it a little bit without undoing it. He doesn't have to take it off the tree, even while it's still hanging on the tree. He can pull it down so that part of it should be below 10 tefachim. The yate roisha echad ad she'el toichyud. They'll pull down one side of the basket, so one side of the basket will hang down within the 10 tefachim of the ground, which within Rosh Hashanah. V'yitel es Eruvai, and through that he'll be able to take his Eruv. So that is what Rabbi Yirmiyah wants to suggest. Well, we're talking about Bein Hashmoshes, and he could still be going to Rebbe. Right, we could say it's all Bein Hashmoshes. So Zok to Gemara, Rabbi Yirmiyah Mishani Kalkala Hoil V'Yachlan Toisa Levil Techasar. Yosy Rav Papa was there. He was sitting there. And he said over Rabbi Yirmiyah's teretz. You can pull the basket down. So Zok to Gemara, Eisvei Rav Bar Shavel Rav Papa. He has a huge problem. So you're telling me that for Eruv Tchumen, I don't even have to put my Eruv Tchumen where it needs to be. I can put it nearby, and since I can pull a basket, since I might be able to get it there, that's good enough. So then leave it in your house. Leave your Eruv in your house. What's the difference if I have to make the movement of taking it from the basket into the Rosh Hashanah, or I leave it in my house and have to bring it? I got to do something. So once you're saying I don't actually have to place there where it belongs, so then all bets are off. And that's what Shavel asked Rav Papa. And this brayso is an interesting brayso, but all we're trying to prove from there is you have to put the Eruv where it belongs. Now, what was the case? The case was that you had a Friday was Yom Tov. and Shabbos was the day after Yom Tov, was Ishruchag, and you wanted to be able to travel past your Tchum on Friday, on Yom Tov, and the next day on Shabbos. Now the halacha is your Erev has to be placed between the Shmashos of Yom Tov in order for it to allow you to travel on Yom Tov. And then tomorrow afternoon, Friday afternoon, again, you have to place your Erev. You have to make sure your Erev is there as well, right? Because if it disappears, you can't make the Erev Tchumen for Yom Tov and say it works for Shabbos. The Erev has to be there going into Shabbos as well. So how do you do it? And you don't want to use more than one food item. Kedjeroja, Malicha Barishon, Erev Yom Tov. You bring your Erev to the place where you want to set your Erev up. Umach you wait till it gets dark so you pass the Ben Hashmoshes period. Then v'noitla, now you can take your food, you can go back home. Ubali, you can go home, you can use that food. Ubisheni, then when Yom Tov afternoon going into Friday evening, machshav there you'll go there with the Eruv and you'll make sure that it gets dark so it passes the Ben Hashmoshes period, triggers the Eruv. Now you can't take it home anymore because it's Shabbos, you're not allowed to carry it. So if you don't want your food to go to waste, if you don't want to just abandon it there till Motzei Shabbos, you can have your Friday night Suda, you can eat it right then and there. And then then you can go back to your house. And then Shabbos afternoon, you have your Eruv because it was already there. Freik the Gemara, why is it necessary that you even put your Eruv? Why do you have to schlep out there? So Rashi asks, so why did we bring the Rai from this case? You could have picked any case of Eruv that you got to put your Eruv in place. So Rashi says, places disagrees, but Rashi says there's no Brisa or Mishnah that ever explicitly discusses actually putting an Eruv somewhere. So we picked this Brisa because this Brisa happens to talk explicitly that you put your Eruv somewhere. Frek the Gemara, am I? Neima kivin the boy amtuye matzimamtele. According to you, Rabbi Yirmiyah, who holds you could just put it in the wrong place. It's in the basket above Tedvachim, but since I could pull it down, I didn't pull it down. Since I couldn't, it's good enough. So then I'll leave my Eruv in my house. And since I could have put it where it belongs, we'll make believe it's an Eruv. Once we talk about make believe, let's expand it completely. Reb Zera, no. In the normal case, in the Brisa where you brought me right for Yom Tov, there it's different. Really, normally you're right. You could leave your Eruv at home, but the reason why we don't let you is Gzeira mishum Yom Tov shecholias achar Shabbos. We're afraid that if you don't actually place your Eruv where it belongs, what happens if you have Yom Tov that's on a Sunday? There, you have to be able to put the Eruv in place. You can't leave it in your house and say, since I could have put it in place, it's a good Eruv, because on Shabbos, you can't take it out of your house. So really, as long as you could do it, Rabbi Yirmiyah holds it's good enough. The reason why we make you do something and we don't let you leave it in your home, because if you leave it in your home, that wouldn't work for an Eruv that was to work for Sunday, that was to work for Yom Tov that was Sunday. Because there, you if you want to, you can take it out of your house on Shabbos because you can't carry it. So because of that, we always mandate that you actually have to put the Eruv in place. But if it's in a basket, it would be good enough. Frek the Gemara, Eisvei, Nischaben Lishbois B'Rishus HaRabim. You were planning to spend Shabbos in Rishus HaRabim. V'hiniach Eruv B'Kaisel. There was a wall there. There was a wall right near. And Rashi says, it was samach l'makom shvisasa. So you picked where you wanted to be parked for Shabbos. There was a wall nearby, but it was chutz la'arba ames kamar. It was out of the arba ames, because if it's in the arba ames, it's like it's right in my space, right? We want to say it's out of my space. So there was a wall that was, let's say, 15 feet away, more than 4 ames away from where I'm standing. So just like when we explained our Mishnah, we said that in the tree it was speaking where it went past 4 ames. The Toich Arba Amis, if the Eruv is placed within Arba Amis, it doesn't matter if it's below 10 Tvachim, it's above 10 Tvachim, Nami Eruv Eruv, the Noishon Eruv Yeshle Arba Amis all the way up, and you can adjust its altitude. So we want a case where it might be in Rishus HaRabim, where it might be in Rishus Yochid, and he doesn't have access to it. So let's look at this case over here. His intent was to spend Shabbos in his Dalet Amis in Rishus HaRabim. And he put an Eruv in a kaisel that was about 4 amas away. If it's lower than 10 tvachim, so that area on the wall is considered Rishus HaRabim. Eruv. His Eruv is a good Eruv. How does he get to it? He gets to it by bringing it to him pachas midalat amas, like we learned in our Mishnah with a tree. But if he placed it up on the wall high, there was like a shelf coming out of the wall. He put it up high on the wall, then ain't Eruv Erev. I'm sorry, I can't see. Then ain't Eruv Erev. It's above 10 tefachim, ain't Eruv. Why? Because even though his 4 amos go all the way up, but from there he can't reach over and get the item that he has. So therefore, that item is in Rishus HaYachid. He's in Rishus HaRab. Now, what happens if it's Nischavan Lishbois B'Rosh HaShoivach? He created some type of cabinet or chicken coop, and that's going to be above 10 tefachim, and he wants to be on top of there. So he built himself like a stage that he was going to be on top of, meaning he's also going to be in Rishus HaYachid. Nischavan Lishbois B'Rosh HaShoivach B'Rosh HaMigdal. L'mayla b'yutfach. So then, l'mayla b'yutfachim, if the Eruv is on the wall above 10 tefachim, which is where he is as well, he's on a stage, he's on a platform, then they Eruv Erev. Then we'll say it's a good Erev because the Erev is in Rishus HaYachid and he's in the Rishus HaYachid. But l'mata b'yutfachim, if the Eruv was placed below him in the Rishus HaRabim and he's on a platform which is considered Rishus HaYachid, ain't Eruv Erev. His Erev wouldn't be a good Erev. Frek the Gemara, according to Rabbi Yirmiyah, who you could imagine it, whatever platform he built, maybe he could sort of bend that platform down so that one area of the platform should be below 10 tefachim. So now he can get there. If you want to suggest, Rabbi Yirmiyah, that you could bend the basket down, so I'll bend my platform down. I'm on the platform and the Eruv is below. It's exactly the opposite. But the same way, if the Eruv is on top, I could bend the basket down and bring the Eruv below 10. If my platform's high, I'll bend my platform down a little bit. Once you're imagining that I can bend things. On Rabbi Yirmiyah, you're right. Theoretically, that would be possible. But this brisa, it's speaking that it's very well nailed in. It's not flexible. If it was flexible, yeah, maybe you could use that heter, but it wasn't flexible. I'm assuming he's relatively normal, like 250 pounds. That's right. Well, after he walks there. Rava says, Afilu tema b'migdal she'enim mesumar. Even if it's a flexible platform, it still will be a problem. Why? V'hacha b'migdal archas kinan. We're talking about a very, very long. It means like a very tall migdal. And in order for you to bend it over to be within 4 tvachim, the mamtile purta novik chutz la'arbamas. If I try bending it over, then it's so long that the area that gets below 4 tvachim, when I bring the surface below 4 tvachim, it's going to be so far away, it's going to be more than 4 amas away from the Eruv. And therefore, Rashi has 2 pshatim. Either, since it's 4 amas away, I can't bring it. And there, we allow you to bring it pachas midal amas. That's the only thing you're relying on. But now you're relying on the imagination of bending it and Malachim Bachar. That's too much. That's one pshat. The other pshat is you're too far away from your Eruv, and therefore it's not considered a good Eruv. So that's why it wouldn't. So again, theoretically you could bend things, but here, because of the local conditions, it wasn't allowed. It was more than 4 amas. It was a problem. That's why it was a problem. So I don't understand. Okay, it's a very long and it's tall. I can't bend. But I have another solution. Let's say I had a string that I could tie in my Rishus HaYachid. I'm up there in my Rishus HaYachid. Okay, I'll take a string and I'll tie it to the food that's lower down on the wall in Rishus HaRabim, right? And if I have walls to the basket that I'm in, if I have walls to the platform, I can make a window in the side wall and drop a rope out and tie it to the food and pull it in. The halacha is if it's connected, that's not midrabban. You're allowed to put. It's only midrabban you're allowed to put it. Midrash you're allowed to put it in. So kavsa umasna lies of a kavsa umasna. If he has a window with a rope to let him pull it with that, and that would also allow him to access his food. Beinish mashes. Zok huge chiddush. The Leslie kavsa umasna. He happened not to have his rope that day and his window that day. So that's right. If you had it, would be a good. According to Rabbi Yirmiyah, you have a huge chiddush that you could even if your Eruv is not placed where it belongs, but if you could massage it a little bit right before Beinish mashes to bring it to where you need it to be, it would be a kosher Eruv. Here. Zok the Hele Gemara. Oh, I think we should stop here. Yeah, we better stop here at 7:05. So perfect. Shkoyach. We have to have a conversation tomorrow. On Sunday. What time are we learning?
And what about next week? Kuslichas.
Right. So I want to do one at a time. So davening will be 8 o'clock, right? On Sunday. So we learn at 7. So Sunday we'll learn at 7. Monday, what time is slichas? 6:40 slichas. So are we going to learn at 5:40? I think we learned like 5:50. I don't think we did like a full hour. We did like 50 minutes. So 5:50. So next week we'll learn at 5:50. Does that work for everybody? Okay. What's that? Oh, we could do that as well. Oh, I forgot to discuss what time are we learning Shabbos. I forgot about Shabbos.
Should we do 5:15?
So what time is Mincha?